Hello everybody. Today I figured I would take you along with me making dinner. In today's video I am going to make Asiago mushroom chicken. So that's what we're doing in today's video. To start, I just put some extra virgin olive oil in the bottom of my pan here that's heating up. And in this recipe, it calls for chicken breasts, but I decided to use boneless, skinless chicken thighs. I actually think it gave it a really good flavor. Dark meat is pretty flavorful. So here I'm just laying them out all on one side, and I'm gonna season them with some salt and pepper and some Italian seasoning. In the video here, I'm using one hand for the chicken and then one hand for the seasoning. The sprinkle of Italian seasoning in this recipe, seasoned on the chicken, gave it a really nice flavor. I was a little surprised. I'm not overly fond of Italian seasoning, but this was subtle and it was good. It gave it a lot of flavor. This is the Italian seasoning mix that we mixed together in previous video, I think from last year, before I moved. We did a seasoning mix video, and that's when I made this seasoning with you guys. So now that the pan is hot, I'm just putting the chicken thighs in here, the seasoned side down, to give them a little bit of browning. And then I'm going to start seasoning the other side the same way I seasoned the bottom side. While the chicken was browning on the one side, I decided to cut up this half a yellow onion that I had. It's a very small onion and I only had half of it left from breakfast, so I decided to add it to this recipe. It is actually not in the recipe, so keep that in mind. There are a couple items here that I add to this recipe that were not in the recipe. Onion and spinach being two of those items, as well as later on here, you're going to see that I added some Parmesan cheese. That is also not in the recipe, but I added it and I'm glad I did. All of these items added to the flavor of the recipe. I wanted to add some spinach just to give it some extra nutritional value. So I'm just chopping up some white button mushrooms here. I'm just chopping them into nice little pieces. I don't like to have big chunks of vegetables when I'm eating, so I just chop them up nicely. By the time I was done chopping up the vegetables and the spinach, it was time to flip the chicken over, so that's what I'm doing here. I'm just flipping them over. Don't be too concerned if the bottom of the pan is getting browned. All of that is flavor and it's really good. You want that. So by the time the second side here cooks, the bottom of the pan will have quite a bit of remnants on it, which is perfectly fine. It's all flavor, and you're gonna see how we get that off here in a minute. You want to cook the chicken till it's probably about half to 3/4 and browned on both sides. It will finish in the sauce. So once the chicken reached that point, I took it out and put it into a bowl so I could make the sauce. As you can see here on the bottom of the pan, the remnants that I was talking about, that's all good flavor, which we're gonna put right into the sauce here. So now that I got all the chicken out, I just wanted to add the spinach, the mushrooms, and the little piece of onion that I decided to put into this recipe. And I'm gonna lightly saute these with about 2 tablespoons of butter. I also add about 3 cloves of garlic. If you like garlic, you can add more. I do add a tiny bit more into this recipe. It gives it lots of flavor. I'm using jarred garlic for this recipe, which was about 2 tablespoons, but if you wanted it in cloves, it's about 3 cloves. Then I add about half a teaspoon to a whole teaspoon of thyme to the recipe. That gave it also another level of flavor that was really good. The red chili flakes, it says about 1/4 to half a teaspoon. I just put in a couple small pinches. My family doesn't like a lot of spice, so do it to taste, I would say. And then I just mixed it all up, kept sauteing it a bit, and got ready to put the next ingredients in. So this is where we're going to add the chicken stock. This is going to get the flavor off the bottom of the pan. So in the recipe it says about half a cup. I think I used closer to about a cup and a half. I wanted to make a lot of sauce, so keep that in mind. I will post the recipe in the description box. But this is the part where the drippings on the bottom of the pan here all combine, and you get all that delicious flavor from sauteing the chicken into the sauce. You want to make sure you try and scrape up all those bits off the bottom of the pan. Here I'm just giving you a close-up look how all those bits came right up off the bottom and are combined into the sauce now. Now I'm adding about half a cup of heavy whipping cream. This gives the sauce a really nice creamy texture and adds to the base for the cheese that we're going to add in soon here. Make sure the heavy cream is combined in really well with the butter mixture before you add the cheese. So I'm just going to give it another layer of pepper here. I like to season in layers when I cook. I usually season the meat and I season the sauce, and then I taste it and I season the final product. So here I'm going to use about half a cup to 3/4 of a cup of Asiago cheese. You do not want to add a lot of salt to this recipe because the cheese itself is quite salty. So you don't want to add extra and then have it too salty. I also add some Parmesan here as well, which is not in the recipe like I mentioned, but I do recommend putting it in. It added a whole other layer of flavor and it made it delicious. I only added in about 1/4 to half a cup of Parmesan to this recipe. once the cheese is combined, I started to put the chicken thighs back into the sauce. You want to just space them out and make sure to give them room to finish cooking. And they're going to finish cooking in the sauce and soak up a lot of the flavor because they're not fully cooked. And make sure the juice is at the bottom of the bowl from the chicken. Make sure you include that in the sauce. It's all flavor you want. You want all good flavor. Just make sure all the sauce has come onto the chicken. So if you need to use your spoon and just, like I'm doing here, pouring it onto the chicken, and just make sure it's all nice and saturated and it's going to seep right into the chicken. It gives it a really, really good flavor. This sauce does end up thickening a bit by the end after it starts to cool a little bit. It did thicken up more than I expected. So keep that in mind, not to add too much liquid, but it turned out good. So here is the finished product. Does not look good. It was so good, and I decided to make it with some steamed broccoli and cauliflower that day, which paired perfectly with it. I think that turned out super well. It smells delicious. I've already tasted it. It's delicious. I'm definitely gonna make this recipe again, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I want to thank everybody for watching, and I'll see you next time.